The world's getting disrupted. Technology is causing problems. Politics are causing problems. The culture is in a crisis. We have people dying. We have problems in the streets. What do we do about it? Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of what I used to do, these chalk talks, and I'm going to bring that back. Specifically, actually, let me hop right in. One of the things we need to prepare for is we need to prepare for all the massive shifts in culture, technology, and society. We're right now in the middle of all of this crisis. How do we prepare for this? How do we actually take advantage of this moment and not just deliver kind of, getting through it and surviving it, but using this as a moment to transform what's happening? I'm going to talk about that. So let's start with, for those of you that might have seen my work over the years, I talk about that there's 3 different lines of change that we need to look at. Technology gets introduced, then we want to get to this economic output of something interesting economically happening. But the part that the entrepreneur provides, this wave right here, these are 3 different waves. Technology creates this opportunity for economic. Most people focus here, but what they forget is this need for a social impact. Like entrepreneurs are the purveyors of culture, and because of that, part of what we need to do as entrepreneurs to deal with the crisis that's going on is to stand in the middle and create this social change. We are the creators of culture, we are the creators of the social change, but we need to remember to do this job that we've been entrusted with. Let me give you some perspective. There's this quote where Dr. Bob Metcalfe actually said, "Invention is a flower, innovation is a weed." The key thing that I think he was actually trying to get at is to say, for us to take an invention and actually make sure that it grows like a weed, we have to build this middle part. That's my interpretation of his quote. And the thing that I want to say about it is this is the key thing that we actually have to do as entrepreneurs. Now, as a technology entrepreneur, I started my first company in 94, and I been working in technology startups since 89. Part of what I got to see all the way back to that first Steve Jobs startup where I worked at Next is how is it that we use visionary technology and be entrepreneurs and embrace this change agent, societal impact role that we have. In my life, I got to be a pioneer in e-commerce for Dell. I got to do this whole incubation entrepreneurship stuff. I predicted it all the way back to 2003. And now if we look at it, entrepreneurship is much more popular than it ever was before. It's been much more democratized than it ever was before. And that's partially what you got to see. Same thing about open source. One of the last startups that I started myself as an operator myself was to put together 17 different open source packages to drive. So all this, what I'm trying to say is what I've gotten to see and lead, and history doesn't necessarily predict the future, but it's valuable to look at the insights about what happens, right? We use history not to tell us what the future is going to look like, but to prepare us to have a set of practices that we can engage in to say, hey, maybe based on my experience over here, this might be what's possible. Well, right now, artificial intelligence is disrupting many things. And the misuse, a lot of our social media technology that's already been there, is creating massive disruptions. And we see that based on these disruptions, especially the misuse of social media, where there's these people that are using this to do misinformation and disinformation, are creating this great societal need. There's this great social need. Right now, I say our culture is broken. I'm not saying that one side or another side, on any kind of, simplistic analysis of the political process or anything like that. I'm not saying that one of them's right. What I'm saying is that fundamentally right now, our culture is broken. Our culture is broken. It's broken partially because the entrepreneurs that leveraged the technology didn't necessarily devise the right social impact portion of how this technology played to create economic outcomes that make for culture actually coming together appropriately. So what do we do about this? To talk a little bit more about how bad things are at. Right now, there's all these social crises that I want to point to. A very simple one, and it's very, very tragic that it's happening, but it seems to have accelerated a lot, is just the clear number of suicides and the type of crimes that are happening right now, but especially the suicides. People who, instead of applying their lives and however they might, they're giving up. Now, in Austin recently, there's been several notable strong entrepreneurs that, for whatever reason, have taken that direction with their lives and into their lives versus that. I don't want to focus here, but one of the ways of validating that the culture is broken, other than the protests and stuff like that we see, is to say this is like an endemic. And we have this thing about politicians that are hiding the truth and lying. And, everyone says, well, this is, the person doesn't necessarily mean what he or she is saying, but, part of what I want to say about this is, let's look into the deeper psychology of what's going on there. This is our shadow showing. Part of what's happening is, there's been issues underneath. If we look at history, I actually tend to think that history has gotten better with every step. Like every step towards the future that we've done over the last, if we look over the last few hundreds of years, or even thousands of years, we've continued to proceed forward in a way that different issues have come up, they've been looked at, they've been identified, and then better solutions have happened. More people are better off today than they were years before. But we slowed down on that, and this is a good example of why. Carl Jung, the psychologist, says, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. It's such an important quote that I'm going to say it several times, because this is what us as entrepreneurs, we need to be looking at. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. What does this mean? What does this mean? The whole idea about it is part of what we're seeing with these type of activities and what I'm pointing to here, and the whole fact that, social networking technology has been so abused by people to then take advantage and enslave other people. Like right now we have people that are following leaders and ideas that just aren't true. And what's worse is, it's my belief with the technologies we have right now that we could have 10 times the services, 10 times the capacity of a better world at 1/10 the cost, right? That's the whole thing about technologists like me. We build technologies that make the world a better place. But right now what's happening is we're having the unconscious different issues that are coming up, and we're finally, as a society, getting to really deeply look at them, find out what is it that's happening that hadn't been, what's not been taken care of. And we're seeing different elements of the society in the United States alone that's saying, hey, wait, you haven't been taking care of me. You haven't necessarily had any concern for me. And so therefore, I'm going to create problems for the world. All right, well, let me talk about my own experience. In my 20s, I was on top of the world. Right? My face was on the cover of Computer World magazine. There's a number of different articles about me, different things and stuff like that. But I ended up falling really hard. We see technology leaders that are doing this right now. They're very successful, quote unquote, but there's this really dark side that's coming out. I had to deal with my own, darkness, my own need to, not just my own need, but it's just like, all this crap that was inside of me ended up coming out, and I had to fall to work on my own personal healing. Part of what we're seeing in society right now is it's not just individuals. There's a whole set of individuals that are having all this crap that's not been dealt with in our collective unconscious, that's now being dealt with. It's now, it's being forced to be dealt with. And the idea is, the answer is healing and community and connection, right? These things. There's this whole idea about, empathy being a problem. And we have had a couple of different technology leaders that say that empathy is the problem. No, actually, empathy is the solution. The problem is that if you haven't had the fall, if you haven't dealt with your inner shit, sorry to use that type of language, but if you haven't dealt with that, then you're going to see empathy as the problem. But the truth is, the answer is healing, community, connection. Any of you that seen me talk about the campfire, the whole idea of working together as a community around a campfire, there's this idea that we really want to dig into here about individual healing, community healing, building a culture that actually works, that actually takes advantage of the technologies that we have and take it to the next level. Right, that's what this is about. So I came up with a model, and I'll go into more depth about it at some point in the future. But it's a 4-quadrant model that says we have to work on motivations, mechanics, culture, and structure. Let's start here on mechanics. Mechanics, when I say the mechanics, part of what an entrepreneur or any business person has to know is revenue minus cost equals a profit, right? You have to know that to be effective in business. And so, we have to first have that big business school type of knowledge. And then structure, we need to have structures that really make it possible. A good example is a co-working facility. You need a place to work, you need a set of laws, you need access to banking that works and all the different things. We have to have the structures. But the thing that I think right now we're being called to is on this side of the picture. Motivations, the inner motivations, the whatever is unconscious that's driving so many people in these negative outcomes that are being driven by this, until you make the unconscious conscious, it's going to rule your fate, and it's going to rule your life. You're going to call it fate. Until you do that, part of what we have to do is really clarify what is motivating people and what are the things that really we actually have to tap in. Some of it we have to heal, some of it we have to harness to go forward, the motivations. And then part of it is the culture. What made the United States strong is not competition. It's this whole idea of I want to help you, you want to help me. In the olden times, it was I'm a farmer, you're a farmer, I'm going to help you build your barn, you're going to help me build my barn. Any of you that have come to one of my campfire presentations know that this whole idea about how we set up this culture, or if you've heard my history of why did I leave Silicon Valley in the 90s when I had access to, I was just working at a Steve Jobs startup. Why did I come back to, hippie musician Austin and all that sort of stuff? It's because we had a culture that was much healthier, where, hippie musicians were taking care of each other and getting through building their gigs and stuff like that. So technology entrepreneurs like me wanted to be in this healthier culture where we took care of each other. Part of what we've got to get back to is that. I won't go into this much more for today because I want you to see the overall idea, but we're going to be spending a lot more time in our conversations of not about, the business school kind of knowledge or building new structures, but these motivations, how to get in touch with one's own healing journey, as well as motivations to go beyond where you're able to go right now, and how to be building these cultures, because part of what we have to do is prepare for this idea of what's changing. New technologies are requiring to get to the economic opportunity that is there. And you might even think about this from the standpoint of we could drop the cost associated with any of the services that we want to have as part of our society. We can take care of people in the streets. We can take care of the world and all that sort of stuff. But we should drop the cost associated with that. It's not about cutting people off. It's about making sure that these services are 10 times less expensive than they have been before. How do we actually get there? We can build those structures and the mechanics. That's all possible. I can prove this to you based on my experience of how I've had so much experience with technology. But the key thing is what's missing is we've got to rebuild and build a new culture, because we've got new technologies. We need to have this new societal culture to get to that next set of economic outputs. And so the idea about this is, technology lowers the cost when configured right. Technology, all these technologies we have all the tools we need right now for actually solving these different things. Part of the reason you've seen me go around the world and bring this one technology and this one team from one part of the world and introduce it into another part of the world. Part of what the Tech Ranch model is about is giving global entrepreneurs access to markets to drive impact, right? Why is that? It's because technology lowers the cost. All these different services that we want to have, all the ability, like healthcare for everybody. How do we get there? We got to configure that right. We got to figure the technology that's already there. Now, to make it happen, we've got to build the culture to get to that economic impact. That's there. And the truth is that many disruptions are coming. Many disruptions. There's lots more disruptions that are coming. AI has just started disrupting the world. Part of what we want to see is we want to get to a different version of what's possible through this. There's many different disruptions. Are we going to just survive through those disruptions? Or are we going to take them, build the culture that we have to get to, and get to a whole different level of economic output? That's part of the thing to look at it. And you guys have always known that anyone that's seen me speak before about this is entrepreneurs are the heroes of this story. We will celebrate and support, and my role is to build an organization that helps the entrepreneurs do this. More people are going to be introduced to entrepreneurship in the next few days, weeks, months, years than ever before. The only way to deal with all the disruptions, all the job loss, is to get more people on the playing field and able to respond as entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are here to respond. And entrepreneurs, part of your requirement is to know the role that you play in building culture, because it's not just about building more tools. So that's why we say, there's this one Peter Drucker quote that says, culture eats strategy for lunch. Culture eats strategy for lunch. As we think about the strategies we might actually do, part of the thing that's more important right now is to get to this. We've got to prepare our culture for dealing with these technology disruptions that are happening right here and getting entrepreneurs to respond. This is our work, and it starts with ourselves. The thing I want to do is I want to say that this isn't just some, go back to business school and learn some business concepts. Part of what we've got to do now is to start really identifying who we are, what we're up against, and what are the internal things that are holding you back. I'll talk a little bit about the things, in my case, I've engaged in 34 different, like really kick your own butt, change the world kind of things, but for myself personally. I'll start to share on that because it really starts with ourselves. And it does feel like dark times. What I'm saying here is it feels like things are getting really dark, but you've heard the expression, it's darkest before the dawn. There are a lot of people who are scared of the dawn that's coming. And when I say the dawn, what's great about it is I truly believe that we're in a position where we're going to see in just a short period of time, it might be a couple of years to get there, but we're going through a really dark time right now because part of what we have to do is, as I saw one time in person, Don Miguel Ruiz say, you have to open up the wound, let all the crap out of the wound that's been, crusted over and healed poorly, and then put the medicine in and seal it up so you can actually have it heal. It feels like dark times, but part of what's happening is it's time to grit all that crap out. So, and uncovering what's been hidden. It's been hidden in our society that we've not been taking care of people. There's been much more abuse than there should have ever been. There's injustice around the world that should be handled, right? MLK said it best when he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Part of what we need to do is uncover every place that this has happened, whether, social injustice or just lots of different types of things that have to happen. But it starts with identifying where you're holding back in your own self. Which gets us to, the thing to think about is, again, invoking this idea about history. We're entering into a period of time that's going to look just like 2008, 2009. I think it's going to be worse than what happened then. But part of what I saw during that time was entrepreneurs were there to respond during this time. And part of what ended up coming out of that, now I happen to be in one of the towns in the world that did better than anywhere else in the world, right? Austin recovered faster than many of the other places in the world because we had this community culture about tying us together. We're gonna have to do it again, but we gotta build something that's even deeper because of the technology disruptions and political disruptions that are happening. So if you believe any of this sort of stuff, on this, my final note on this is going to be sign up and get involved with us. Part of what the conversations I want to start having with you is how can we mobilize? How can we mobilize to a different level than what we've done in the past? Part of this whole idea is getting mobilized and working together. Now, part of what I'd like to do is on the wherever you see this posted, I am going to post a pathway to sign up for getting more involved. If nothing else, sign up for the Tech Ranch newsletter, and you can do that at techranch.com/contact. And the main thing about it is we've got a lot of work to do. Yes, we're entering into a part of dark times, but the dark times have always been there. The main thing that's happening is we're flushing up what's in the inside of our society and inside ourselves. And it's now time to make the unconscious conscious so we can look at it, clean it up, heal it, and build for the future. With that, it's my honor to get to talk to you about these things. Thank you for listening, and let's go change the world for the better together. Thank you.